All right, well, hello, and today is another day of decaling and working on some custom 164 die casts. My name is Doug Mount, and today is May 20th, 2020. Hope you guys are all having a great day. Mine's going pretty good so far. Today's video, I just want to show you just moving things forward with regard to the customs that I'm working. Working this 2013 Grand Theft Auto 5 Matt Kenseth number 20. This is a fantasy car, meaning one he didn't drive on the track, but just one somebody made some decals for it and had them available on Pato's place, where I get the decals, and requested this. So bought the decal set and making it for them. So I've already applied the decals here all around. A couple things I'll show you. I had to pre-paint this back part and this here, the spoiler here. And the reason I did that was because, and I'm gonna just trim it a little bit, because the decal here doesn't quite go all the way up onto the edge of this back area. So I pre-paint things that don't give full coverage, as long, of course, if I have the matching color. And even though this is somewhat of an off black, it's not like a gloss black. That's the color I wanted to paint. Also, the decal itself was a little big, and it covered up some of the spoiler. So what I'll do is I'll seal this car a couple times, and then I'll come back and I'll paint the spoiler again over top of where the decal is. And I put the sealer on because this is basically just paper, and if I paint it, the paint will seep ever so slightly into the paper, and it could spread. Like, it could actually come down here. Even though I paint up here, it could seep down in here and get black and mar the Gamestop decal here. I've seen that happen before. I've done that before. That's why I say that. And making customs for 10 years, you have a lot of lessons learned, and usually your lessons learned are from things that you screwed up on. And so that's why I do that. But one other thing I also did was, I said I pre-painted the spoiler. One of the things I strive to do is that when the spoiler's a different color from the body, which is generally always the case on a non-black vehicle, I strive to make this line of differentiation between the spoiler and the body as straight as possible. And what really helps do that is when you have a decal that goes here, and you cut that straight, or it's ever slightly angled. So I pre-paint the spoiler, and then I put the decals on it. And as you can see, hopefully you can see, the line here is nice and straight. So I don't have to do any touch-up work, and it looks really nice. That's what I like about that. So I've already got the decals on the side here. One other word. So this decal set does not stretch all the way, so that, again, this is all one piece across the bottom here. It doesn't stretch all the way to line up with the rear decal. So I'm going to have that space there. In the past, I tried to paint red in there to match, but it never turns out very good. And so I just, unfortunately, just leave it this way. It doesn't line up. It doesn't line up, and I've also at times tried to cut this decal to get the fuel door and this side light turn signal, fake turn signal, by the way, and move it back here so it lines up. But then the fuel door doesn't necessarily line up. So it's just a shortcoming of the decal set. for this particular custom, and unfortunately a lot of different customs. The body of the die cast from Lionel apparently wasn't used to build the die cast or to build the decal set. Pato's place, which I think by far has the best decals available and the widest selection of decals available, his primary focus has been to make slot cars that go on a I don't even know what it is, if it's plastic or some kind of composite plastic body, and those bodies aren't necessarily always made from the Lionel die casts, and so sometimes the decal sets just don't line up. So yeah. And one other thing real quick, when I put the hood decal on, as you can see, this hood decal, it has some markings for the cowl, some rectangles here, rectangles over here in this black kind of like vent area. This is all one decal. The headlights and this front grille are a separate one decal. They just don't line up. So I have to either line this up, sacrifice the grille not lining up with the body of the die cast, or I line up the grille and sacrifice up here, and I chose to get this correct and to sacrifice the grille because it's ever so slightly not lining up with the body. It's just a little bit high. That I think was the best decision because this side decal actually comes up and it matches with the hood decal right here, and so that lines up good. If I had moved this down, that wouldn't line up, and so even though I would have the grille right, the cowl would be off, this side decal wouldn't line up with the hood, so I'd have a couple different errors, and obviously when I put this other side on it, it might line. Well, actually, it doesn't look like there's any interface between the hood and this side. So, it's the lesser of two evils. Kind of like when you go to the voting booth and you vote. Rarely do you have a candidate that is that is the one perfect candidate. You end up having to pick the lesser of two evils. So, I'm going to put these final decals on now. I'll show you how I do it on this side. It's basically this one decal, and then we have a couple. This one whole piece is a decal. The reason I've left it as one whole piece, and I may not do that. Yeah, I'm probably going to trim this off. Keeping this all one piece, especially like this here on the end, this here. When you go to slide it off, this tends to curl like back underneath the other decal, and it's really difficult to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim these off and dip them that way. And then when I put them on the car, I'll line them up. So I cut that NASCAR race car decal off, put that in the water. This one's a little trickier because some of these side sponsored decals, they come down a little bit far. I don't want to cut through those. I want to cut below them, so I don't want to cut the guy's head either. So yeah. So I'll get that in there. I think I'm gonna be able to keep the Goodyear logo there because the G and the O go onto the rest of this decal. The rest of the letters don't. I've split that up in the past. It's a nightmare to try to get back together again. So I'm just going to try to leave it there. Before I do that, I line it up here. See how this looks before I put it on the car. See if I'm going to run into anything. I may run into a little bit of this decal hitting the spoiler. On a lot of the wrap die casts I make, trimming the decal to not hit with the spoiler before I wet it and put it on is somewhat of a work that's hard to do. Since this is a fantasy car, I don't have any pictures of the actual car because there isn't one. So I have a little bit more freedom to put the decals on the car because there's no real standard to measure it against. So if I trim this and it messes up or whatever, it's not that big of a deal. So I'm going to just trim just a little bit off of here above the side light. So again, I don't want that hitting the spoiler. And then I cut these ever so slightly where I may need to fold this underneath the wheel well. I just put like 2 or 3 little super small cuts in there because it may need to wrap into that wheel well there. And I don't think it's going to happen on the front, but let me check. So if I line up the front, yeah, the back, yeah, and yeah. So it may a little bit need to be trimmed. Let me just trim it just in case. It's not that big of a deal because if I trim it and I don't fold it, it's very hard to notice the cut, especially on this dark kind of mixed up decal here with different colors and things like that. Alright, so let's get this in the water. And I'm going to flip it around this way because I kind of grab it from the right side and I want to grab it. So let that sit for just a couple minutes. After I do that one, I'm going to work on the Jeremiah weed, and I'll do the same thing. I'll paint the spoiler black. Roof lines are... let me do it right now. I'll show you how to do the roof lines. So I use a Sharpie. The paint pen, the paint just, it's inconsistent when you want to do a straight, nice line. The tip is softer than a Sharpie, and sometimes the paint will flow heavy, and if I get heavy paint up here, it's going to look really bad. And so I've gotten into the habit of last few years of just using the Sharpie to do the paint lines on the top or on these roof lines. So let me show you how I do this. Steady hand. You can see I'm holding the car, and I kind of use my pinky against the car, so my hand has a leverage point, as I'm not free-handing it, right? So I have kind of brace it to give it a little bit more stability, and then I just go right across the top. Do that side, and then this side. And I have to keep this. If I angle it any other way, I'm gonna hit the surface with this. So I just do once, and that's that. I will seal it after I get the decals on and all that stuff, and I'll probably go over it once or twice more just to make sure it's a nice thick black color on that. So I have that one to do. I also have this one to do, this 2012 Pink EcoBoost. The paint's all done. The car's ready to go. I guess I can do the roof lines on this one too. Go ahead and do that. It's Tuesday. I'm sorry, it's Wednesday. They're racing again tonight. This crazy post-pandemic, post-COVID NASCAR schedules just bizarre. Racing on Cup Series on Sunday at Darlington, and then Wednesday tonight at Darlington at 6 o'clock. I mean, I don't know, as a fan, it's awesome. 6 o'clock though on a Wednesday, I might have to record it. Wednesday night we have our Wednesday night prayer meeting at our church, and it's it's an online thing. Now we're not able to meet together as a church, but we they stream the service, and we meet there. So I'll do that at 7, and then I'll probably watch the race. I did want to get a coat of sealer on this Crown Royal that I've been working. It's ready. All the decals have dried. I went back this morning and made sure things were tucked underneath, like the wheel well it should. And back in here, had a little issue with with some of the decals that go here. This is a splitter, just above the splitter. That can be difficult to get them to place in there and be straight. And but I think it's ready to go now. Everything else I think is done and ready for the first coat of sealer. Roof lines look pretty good, so let's go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back to the Gamestop car. See, today's Wednesday. I usually put 5 coats of sealer on the car. It's usually just a look. I definitely get 4 coats, but I like to get 4, 5 coats on, depending upon how the car looks. After 4 coats or so. And if it's looking sharp, then I'll take pictures and list it with 4 coats. But usually I try to get 5, and unfortunately sometimes I lose count. I don't know if you ever lose count, but these things are like 15-20 minutes to dry. I'm not always working on a cars nonstop, of course. I've got a day job, I got a family, and sometimes I kind of lose count if I've got 2, 3, 4 coats on a car, and I kind of have to just go by how it looks. And if it looks glossy and it looks good, after doing so many of these cars, you can kind of tell how many coats are on it, at least within 1 or 2 coats. So, but this first coat is just kind of thin. I want to be careful not to move any of the decals. I also need to be. I want to be careful to watch to see if I have moved any of the decals, because that's not good. I want to make sure that it's straight and in place for this sealer, because the sealer will lock it in place. I don't want it too thick, but I don't know if you can appreciate on the camera this metallic purplicious color, but I love it. I don't think I'd ever own a purple car, but it's nice to look at this metallic purple, just really sharp looking. And then with the white, black, yellow decals, this is a favorite of mine. You just don't see too many purple race cars out there, and I don't drink alcohol, so I'm not a Crown Royal connoisseur, but I do appreciate their colors, that's for sure. So after I do this, we'll get back to that car. I don't need too long of a video today. I've been videoing for almost a week now, and I think it's helped me. Actually, it's kind of funny. I think it's helped me be, just to kind of focus and get back to the basics of what I'm doing. It's kind of helped me produce some really good customs with the video. It's kind of like, Big Brother over my shoulder watching what I'm doing. I want to make sure I want to do a good job for the video and for you guys. And so I think it's actually improved. I've improved some of my techniques, and just kind of when you have somebody watching you, even a camera, you tend to be a little bit more, a little bit better, in many ways. All right, so back to this. I want to put this decal on the side, this big decal, And the way I grab this, I have my trusted tweezers that are, it says stainless Pakistan. These things are an indispensable tool. Could not do what I do without this. But you can see I just kind of touch it, and if it moves very easily, then it's ready to roll. So I like to grab this back side where a lot of the decal is, and then I kind of tilt it up, as opposed to grab the other side where the Goodyear is, because that would put some strain on that little decal, and it wouldn't, it might rip on me. So I just kind of lay it across there and just kind of, slide it around a little bit, get it in place. Okay, I can see it's buttoned up against this window here, and so I'm going to pull it low and try to tuck it in underneath the window so it doesn't sit on top of it. And that worked good. I got a little bit here too, but this window is a little bit recessed, so it's going to be harder to tuck it. Let's see if I can do it. I want to watch this so I don't rip that. It's going to let me. Okay, I guess I got a phone call. I don't recognize the number, so I'm not going to get it. Okay. So I can see I've got a little bit of a problem here. The decal is scrunched up against the window. I can't go any further back this way, and this just needs to come up a little bit so the Goodyear can be in place. So let me hold it like this here for a second. Yeah, so my decal is going to go across the window just a little bit. It's not that too big of a deal. And as opposed to being able to tuck it, I tucked it in the back, but I won't be able to tuck it in this side window here. It's going to have to go. This kind of stresses the importance of lining things up and, before you wet it. And even though I did it, it's still a little off, but it's okay. Now I have a couple options here. I can, let me get this done here. Get out any bubbles that are on there. Again, wash my hands. I say that all the time, but wash my hands. My hands are clean. Feel free to touch this stuff. Try to tuck this here. It just folds in just a little bit. Folds a little bit back here. What I'm saying is, you can see it kind of covers the window a little bit. What I can do, we'll see how it looks, but I may be able to, once it dries, get my X-Acto knife and just try to trim the decal, because once it's dry and it's easy to cut. It's no sense trying to cut it now when it's wet. But I could trim it once it's dry, and that way I don't have any conflict with this window. Not really preferred. If I was an expert, I would have caught that before I put this on, and I would have trimmed it before I put it on. But sometimes you just don't catch everything. So that looks pretty good. Sometimes on these nationwide cars, or just really on any car, the curvature on this back on this rear quarter panel just creates a little bit of a problem with the decal set. and it wants to kind of ripple a little bit, so you have to kind of work with the decal, get it to fold over and not have any ripples in it. That's the goal, at least. Okay. Alright, so that's that. Now I've got a couple decals to put in this top. Here, I said I was going to make a shorter video, but it's not turning out to be as short as I had hoped. Memorial Day weekend this weekend. I was talking to some people earlier today, and what a great country we live in. It's not perfect. You know, there is no perfect country. But we have the best country on the planet. And it's all because of, you know, obviously God's been blessed, or God has blessed our country. But we have a tremendous military, a tremendous spirit in our nation. And it's great. And it's right to honor those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. And what a, I don't know, what a great holiday. Yeah, I can cook out and all that kind of stuff, but enjoy the Coca-Cola 600 this Sunday. But, you know, really, you know, it's great to take time to remember and honor those people that have served, are serving, and obviously have paid the ultimate sacrifice and given their life for our country. Jesus said, greater love hath no man than this, than a man lay down his life for his friends. And they've done that. And, you know, of course Jesus did that for us. He loved us so much, he laid down his life for us. Well, that's basically what I wanted to show you guys today. I'm going to let that dry. And that will be a custom that was a special request, and we'll get that one done and move on with some of these other ones. Look for this Crown Royal car. I'll probably list it on eBay here with, if I get the coats of sealer on it, probably list it here tomorrow night maybe. God bless y'all, and we'll talk to you soon.